At News Deeply, we build content platforms for specialized communities, passionate communities who are obsessed with one story or one issue and want to come back to the well again and again to learn about what's happening within that issue. So we started with the Syrian conflict 4 years ago. We launched a platform specifically focused on the situation in Syria. It was a hit, and we got all these requests for other topics. Refugees deeply, Arctic deeply, water deeply, Ebola deeply during the outbreak. And so what we've learned, and the problem that we wanted to solve, was that with these very important and complex issues, the mainstream press is having a lot of trouble keeping up. They don't stick with the story, they jump off to the next thing, and you often have orphaned topics that never get coverage at all. So that was the problem I wanted to solve.
So you seem to be part of some people call impact journalism, solutions-based journalism,
Yep.
slow journalism.
It's a bit ironic that the new wave of journalism actually goes back to the original principles of journalism. I think we've seen so much economic pressure to cut out the heart of the media profession. And the one exception, I think, is in Germany. I mean, you still see a lot of in-depth coverage, and so that's a really powerful thing. You have an audience that cares about these issues, and you find ways to serve them on an ongoing basis. This whole wave of impact journalism and, frankly, thinking about this at a species level. How would our species need to understand this situation we're in today, whether it's climate and environment, geopolitical issues, conflict, migration at a global scale? These are things that we can't afford to miss. And if we don't fully understand them, and if we don't have data, in other words, stories about these situations, we're never going to be able to synthesize the situation and come up with an answer. I want News Deeply to become a major institution in the publishing world. I want it to become profitable. I want it to prove that when you go the high road and you produce interesting, important, true, accurate journalism on the issues that count, that it can pay for itself. And so that is a big challenge. It's a bit idealistic to take it on, but we're off to a good start, and I won't stop until we've proven it.
What tech breakthroughs or innovations in tech do you see emerging or getting better in the next 5 years that can really help journalism?
I think we have seen already an incredible field of tools for any practitioner, for any media startup. It is a perfect era for building something new. Vertical publishing, single topic publishing, one-to-few publishing. It's been called many things, but it's being identified as one of the trends itself in media and technology. And so we are sort of a living example of how you use technology to reorganize and reorient media as a whole. The sky is the limit on what you build as a publishing experience and as a form of interaction with your audience.
There's a lot of buzz about how technology can do good, and I guess you just gave an example of how it can.
Yes.
But more generally, maybe you can briefly speak about that gap maybe that's out there between just saying tech can and should power good, and then actually what it takes for tech to power good, namely promote action and
Absolutely. I think the largest players in our industry have been the worst at innovation. They're incredibly slow, and change management, the very culture of innovation, has been very hard for the major players to master. So we actually haven't seen them as the primary drivers of using these tools, developing these tools, just now, just in the past 2 or 3 years.
And those major players are?
The New York Times is just starting to move in media innovation. All of the incumbent players are just starting to innovate. The Washington Post under Jeff Bezos has begun to lead the way. But for the first 15 years of the digital revolution, they weren't creating anything new. So what actually makes the difference is not just having the technology, it's the political will to use it. And so as a result, what we've seen is a lot of the biggest innovators in this field are people like me who have left incumbent houses to start their own thing.
Perfect segue into my next question. Like your story, I've seen other journalists who have been practitioners, who were practitioners in the past, and many of them in the digital space, doing multimedia news.
We are seeing a generation of media innovators who've come from the practice, who've come from major media houses. And we're seeing it for 2 reasons. One, major layoffs in our industry, and people taking the buyout, especially Reuters, other companies that have had rounds and rounds of buyouts, have meant that people who've been practicing in this profession for 20, 30 years are now available talent. they can think up something new, they can start up something on their own, etc. And the second branch of this is that our industry, because our industry hasn't been good at innovating, it hasn't been problem solving. So there are many problems that are out there for anyone to pick up and try to solve. And so a lot of what you're seeing is practitioners in media who have a fundamental understanding of media and journalism, who know that a specific issue needs to be fixed. I miss being a journalist. I miss being a practitioner. Now I just run things. I build containers for other people's journalism. So I do think someday I'll go back to the profession I came from. To be honest though, I was originally a management consultant at McKinsey, so that's totally a different track. I have loved solving a problem I care about, and I care about the problem of deep journalism. So once I feel like we have a satisfying answer, then I can go back to the things that I enjoy doing, like reporting on the field. Our latest platform, the Women and Girls Hub, launched earlier this month in partnership with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and it focuses on gender issues in the developing world, specifically how women and girls are faring in crisis and conflict, in public health, and in education. We knew this was a very big vertical to take on, but it's been excellent. It's been a way to create a coherent picture of what's really happening in the world for women and girls, and how that frankly compares region by region. So that's been wonderful. We are looking at a whole host of new topics. We have 35 that we are looking at expanding into. Also in public health, we're working on Alzheimer's deeply, and looking beyond that potentially at diabetes, autism. We find that this combination of content and community that we've begun to build is extremely powerful.
You've been backed by North Base Media and Marcus Brauchley. What's the role of venture funding these days for news startups? What are some of the benefits and potential drawbacks?
So we did raise a seed fund of just about $2.5 million US from both impact investors and venture capitalists. So both people who believe in our mission and ones who are hard-nosed capitalists who think this is a big opportunity. I think that venture funding is extremely important for media startups. I also think impact investment should look closely at the media sector, because for impact investors who care about solving the world's biggest problems, it's not going to happen if you don't have independent press there to help things along. So we've been beneficiaries of that, and I do think it's important because you need a runway to prove the model. It's not always about levering up what you do for 100x returns initially, but I do think that if you have the runway to solve a major problem in media, you will naturally create tremendous value. And so the opportunities to create a valuable property by doing good with your work is tremendous. In case you haven't noticed, there are a lot of platforms out there covering, cute cat videos and clickbait. So actually, I believe the opportunity now is on the other end of the spectrum. It's a contrarian move, but as we have all seen, a lot of contrarian moves in this world and in tremendous success.